Hello, everybody. Welcome to the World of Brickfilms podcast. I'm your host, William of AW Studios. Joining us as always is my good friend and co-host, Sean Wood of City Panther.
Hello.
And our special guest today is Chris Salaises. Salaises, yeah, of Minilife TV.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. I almost got it. Almost.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I appreciate the attempt.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys for having me. I've listened to quite a few of these. I think I found the podcast after William started following me on either Facebook or Twitter, and I was like, who's this guy? And then I checked out your channel, and I was like, oh, he has a podcast, and so I gave it a listen, and yeah, it's pretty good. You guys got some good guests on here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
thank you. And I know that we've had you near the top of our list for a long time now.
Yeah.
Ian's sorry he couldn't be here. He's on a family trip right now. So yeah, but also because this is like a brick filming podcast, and I'm pretty much the brick filmer in our partnership. He's the music guy.
Has he ever done any animation at all?
No.
I imagine that, like, on the creative side of things, like within the actual like Minilife TV, is it kind of a collaborative process between the both of you?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely when we were first starting, he and I would write back to back. Sometimes we'd write half a script and send it to the other one and say like, here, you finish this. But basically, yeah, we were just trying to make each other laugh, and honestly, that's kind of one of the things I like about doing this with Ian. I kind of like that he's not really part of the brick filming community. He doesn't really know anything about it, because we're not really playing to the brick filming community, if that makes sense. Like we're just trying to make a show that anyone can watch and anyone can enjoy. It doesn't matter if you follow Lego channels or not. We just want to make a good animated show that people can enjoy. And so, yeah, Ian kind of, in a sense, kind of keeps me grounded,
Yeah, but on that note, do you think that, even if it's not geared towards the brick filming community specifically, do you think that garnering an audience has sort of changed the content? Because I feel like in like season 1 of Minilife TV, there might have been some jokes that were like a bit more risque.
Yeah, well, I would say just us becoming aware that our audience was mostly younger, like kids and teenagers. But then at the same time, I've never been a big fan of like Lego people swearing or like making lewd jokes and that kind of stuff. And I know we did some stuff here and there that was a little bit like that, but honestly, I feel like those jokes in like our earlier seasons, I feel like that was me really trying to conform more to the kind of brick films I was seeing, because at the time, I feel like that was sort of a popular thing. Is like there was a lot of brick films with a lot of sort of rude humor, where like the characters were all just kind of insulting each other and that kind of stuff. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, kind of like Forest Fire. Great example of his videos. His swears a lot, and that's like fine if that's the humor you want to go for. But I've never really liked that for Legos, because I guess it's just the whole thing of you grow up with Legos and like it's this sort of innocent, playful toy. And I've never really been into them cursing or doing like drugs or sex stuff, whatever, I'd like to keep it more fun. And so, yeah, I'd say the lewd stuff, the stuff that's kind of more geared towards adults in our early seasons, that was me really conforming to the brick filming community. And then later we decided like, we don't need that. We don't need to play to that. We can do our own stuff without that.
That's an interesting answer, because I would have just assumed that was a result of essentially you just trying to make each other laugh without having an audience at that stage. So it's interesting to hear that it would have been more an outside influence.
Well, some of it was us just trying to make each other. We were teenagers when we started, but I do know that, like, I remember writing some stuff where I was like writing it because I felt like that's sort of how Brickfilms had to be, you know?
Yeah, I mean that kind of. I mean, I can see that because you started brick filming around, was it like 2007?
Geez, I don't know when I don't know when I started. It was a long time ago.
Because that kind of time is when, like, Forest Fire and that kind of stuff, where it was kind of a bit more adult, as in like strong language and violent stuff. It's kind of when it was pretty popular.
Yeah,
that would be a bit earlier. You know, Forest Fire would have been more popular around the time when Minilife started, rather than in. I mean, I think that the earliest stuff on your earlier YouTube channel predates Forest Fire or like Keshen's popularity. But did you have Lego Studios before YouTube was around?
Oh yeah, I got it when it came out. That was the only thing I wanted for my birthday that year, and my parents got it for me. And it's funny, I remember my birthday party. Like, I had all my friends over from school, and then when the time came to open presents, and I opened it and saw the Lego Studios, part of me was like, I kind of want everyone to just go home now because I want to start this.
Is there any kind of like very early kind of experiments, you know, sort of from when when you first had it?
I feel like the videos I did aren't gone. I think they were like wiped when our old computer had a virus or something. I don't think they were recovered. But I can tell you, like, the stuff I did was mostly, I did a lot of Spider-Man because, like, those Spider-Man sets, like, had just come out around that time. And like the Doc Ock one, that was a really great one because it had so many faces. And I did a lot of the Lego Studios monster sets because I had all of those because I loved them and I had to get all of them. So my parents gradually got me all of them.
Yeah, I was the same.
Yeah,
those are great sets.
Yeah, and obviously that's where Snowball comes from. And then I did a little bit of stuff with clay. I remember I had this ongoing series I do. It was just this sort of like fat snake that was just hanging out on this couch, and I don't even really remember what I had him do, but I made quite a few clips with him. But really, that was just like stuff to show my friends and my parents, because I don't think YouTube was around. Because I'm pretty sure the only thing that was around at that time was Brickfilms.com.
And did you ever find anything on Brickfilms.com or any other website before YouTube was around?
Oh yeah, I used to go on Brickfilms.com a lot. I never put anything on there, but I would watch tons of videos on there. And there's a lot of my favorite ones. In fact, because I have a playlist on my channel of my favorite Brickfilms, and a lot of the ones on there are ones that I found that used to be on Brickfilms.com.
So, like Cognizance and classic films like that?
Yeah. That one definitely. That was one of the first ones where I was really like wow, you know, like it kind of hit me emotionally, like watching. That was like one of the first Brickfilms where I realized, like, oh, you can tell a story with this, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other names you remember from that time?
Yeah. Well, there's obviously the Great Disturbance, which is my pick. I guess when do we talk about that?
We talk about later.
Usually at the end.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that one. That's another like big one. I'll get more into that later. Here, I'm gonna go on my playlist real quick. Also, Special Deliverance. Do you know that one?
Yeah, Leftfield classic.
Yeah.
That one. That's another one that I always really enjoyed because it has like humor and it has heart and it has like a good message to it.
I guess would you be familiar with Ali Baba Bad?
Baba Bad.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound familiar.
Because that was also Leftfield as well.
No, I don't think so. What's the name again?
Aladdin Bababad. It's a combination of Aladdin, Ali Baba, and Sinbad, and it's a fantastic film. It's probably my favorite Leftfield film.
Yeah.
I might have seen it,
same.
and maybe I'm just forgetting the name.
It has the scene at the Burger Doodle where they recite the burger recipe that opens up the cave, like the secret messages in the burger recipe.
Gosh, I really can't remember.
If you'd seen it, you'd know what I was talking about.
There's also the Pokemon card as well, which I think was quite a big thing in the Brickfilms.com era. Like, there's a couple of films that reference it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, holographic Charizard at the misprinted hit point counter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was referenced in the first Alex and Derek film. So that kind of, I guess, gives it a bit more allure than you might expect. Like, I don't think it wasn't really heavily referenced other than that.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. I can't say that sounds familiar. Another one that I remember from Brickfilms.com that I really enjoyed was Frankenstein.
Oh yeah. That's
yeah.
a great film.
Yeah,
that's one of the best.
That one, I think that's like one of the first Brick films that kind of like made me feel uneasy watching it. Like it has some legitimately good like thriller moments,
Mm-hmm. Occasionally people will ask if there's any good horror Brick films, and usually the answer is like, well, not really, but you should check out Frankenstein if you want to see one that's actually effective. It's still kind of the gold standard.
Yeah, and then the Hand of Fate, that's another great one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And also one that I was surprised made a little cameo in the one that you picked. What's the name?
Cleaning Time.
Yeah, the Battle of New Orleans.
Oh yeah,
that one was always one of my favorites, and I was really pleasantly surprised when I saw it pop up in your choice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in fact, just the whole just the way it started, the beginning of it with the Brickfilms.com logo, that like immediately took me back to when I was a teenager going on Brickfilms.com and just seeing what any new Brickfilms people had made.
I find that interesting because I kind of had the impression that you maybe like didn't see much of what other people were doing for a number of years. But I think I got that impression because I had never encountered you like until Minilife TV was around.
Oh.
So I guess I just felt that you were like out there in your own little world somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I was watching, but I wasn't talking to people. I wasn't part of a community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my old channel was not very popular. So yeah, I didn't really. No one really knew about me until Minilife TV.
One of the things that I find really interesting about Minilife TV, because you're talking about like in the first season, I think it's quite. It's quite impressive how much it's kind of evolved from being quite an episodic, quite kind of like short, kind of funny kind of like episodes to being, I suppose, like the later seasons are quite deep, and there's a lot of character and there's a lot of like world building within the actual world of Minilife TV, and you really see a progression throughout the series.
Yeah, well, the way me and Ian started Minilife TV is it's sort of like not the best way to start any show. Is like we were just making it up as we went along. Like I said, we were just trying to make each other laugh, and so yeah, we just made up a bunch of random stuff that we liked, and I remember like around the third season, I started to realize that like if I want this to keep going, I need to like come up with some rules and really ground the show, because otherwise it's just gonna go off the rails and it's not gonna have any kind of continuity. So yeah, it was around like the third season that I really started to think like, okay, what is this world that our characters live in, and how does it affect them? What do they all want? And yeah, and then just trying to make sense of all the random stuff that we had already established led to some very interesting ideas. Like Snowball, for example, is a very interesting one because I still have no idea where I got the idea of just having an episode where we cook a vampire in an easy bake coffin. It was one of those things where I look around the room and just see what I have lying around. Like, oh, vampire, chef's hat, coffin. There's an episode.
And that's actually a great thing about Lego. I've done the same. I've just made episodes that are based around just having a specific prop.
Yeah, there's lots of our early Minilife stuff comes from what was lying around in my room. But yeah, like, so with that, it was like, oh, okay, so what is this society where people can just easily make vampires? And the only conclusion I came up with was like, oh, well, obviously if you're making the vampire, you're sort of in charge of it, so it's kind of like your slave, like you own it. So that led to a very interesting thing that we started exploring in season 4, where it's like, other vampires are not treated as well as Snowball. In fact, Chris and Ian have kind of been sheltering him from the world because the rest of the world is kind of harsh towards them. And so that's just one of the ways that that Minilife evolved from me and Ian just doing random stuff and then later trying to make sense of it.
That's kind of an interesting way of going through it, though. It's like having something which doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense, like initially, but then turning it into something that actually, you know, does make sense, and trying to find a way how it can all fit together. It's an interesting way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, it's not how I set out to do it, but it is a very fun writing challenge to try to make sense of random stuff. That's for sure.
Because as well as like you're making it, you know, it relates to the early seasons as well by doing that, by kind of like looking into the world that you kind of already established, kind of thing.
Yeah, continuity is very, very important to me. I don't know how evident it is, but I've always wanted the show to try to feel consistent, and obviously, like some like visual things have changed a lot from like our earlier seasons to now, just because I've gotten better at animating and I can do mouths and stuff now. But in terms of like the overall story, I try to keep the world grounded and consistent.
Yeah, I'd say that is definitely apparent. Yeah. Yeah,
and it's interesting because one of the biggest challenges that I've had with writing the Minilife movie, and I wish it was already made so I could talk in detail. Maybe you guys can have us back when it's out. But it's been a really interesting challenge just writing it because, you know, it's a prequel. It's supposed to explain how Chris and Ian met, and then ultimately all the stuff that led to them creating Minilife TV together. And it's, you know, as any movie franchise will show you, it's very hard to write prequels. Because you want to try to stay in the same rules that were already established.
Yeah, I feel like the best thing is to try to not fall into the trap of just like referencing things just for the sake of it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that's the best rules, and I think our script is very light on that. We have a lot of, for a prequel, there's a lot of new characters, and there's just like new settings and stuff. But then eventually, we hope it makes sense and it'll all come together and sort of explain all the craziness that follows in season 1 and beyond.
So the movie's been in production for a couple of years by now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's I've had a lot of different things that have delayed it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, lots of just personal things that have happened. I don't need to get into all of them. But obviously, making a movie just in itself is a big feat. But yeah, I spent about a year writing the script. Like it took a whole year for me to actually like finish it, like from page 1 all the way to the end. And then even after that, I still have continued to go back and change little parts here and there and just try to refine it and make it as good as possible. And like it's been a really interesting process. I feel like I've grown a lot, even since like season 5 or even Minilife Chronicles, because like I was still doing this while I was making Minilife Chronicles. So yeah, I'm really excited to get to work on it. Like one of the more interesting processes I found in making it is like after casting the actors or casting the characters and then having people come over and record, and then like I said, that there is new characters, you sort of have to find the voice for these new characters, and then like after you have someone record and you sort of figure out what this character is like, it makes you want to go back and change things in the script, because it's like, oh, I feel like I understand them now and I can work things in better. And then so I do that, and then I call up my friends and they come back and record new lines. And I feel like, and I hope it's reflected in the finished product, but I feel like my skills in character development have gotten stronger, and that's the thing I'm most excited about. That's what I'm most excited about for making this film, is really doing in-depth character stuff, and really it's for the first time in-depth character exploration of Chris and Ian, because I've purposely not had any of our characters' past really be said or shown in the series so far, because I always knew that I was going to go back and do a prequel movie. So I wanted to leave as much open space as possible for me to make it easier to write. So yeah, I know that's kind of like a weird thing of saying, like, oh, you've done a whole you have 5 seasons, you haven't really gone too in depth with your characters. But yeah, that's the way it is.
But that kind of like makes sense though, like with the way that you've developed the other characters like Snowball a lot over the seasons, whereas like with Chris and Ian, because you haven't done it as much, it means that you have like a chance to do it with the film. And I think I guess the mistake a lot of people make when they're doing with like films, franchise films, with like when they do prequels, is that they're trying to develop characters that are already very developed.
Right. Yeah.
So how much footage have you created for the film?
Well, I haven't actually started shooting yet. I am going to be shooting very soon now. I'm getting some final. I have a lot of the sets like 3D built on my computer. Well, first I'm going to be starting doing some character like tests, just like on camera, just to just get a feel for them with their lines. And then after that, I'm going to be doing like a rough storyboard edit of the film on my computer with the audio, and then just 3D models and pictures of the figures, just so that I can try to get a sense of how it's all going to look before I even shoot it. And then once that's done, then I'm going to actually start shooting it.
Nice. Yeah.
I found it useful to create a storyboard edit as well.
Yeah.
I've used an edit like that so that I don't have to spend additional time setting up shots. If I have the entire film in a storyboard edit, I can pick out points where I might be able to reuse a setup.
Yeah, I've
used the same shot twice.
I've actually already I've storyboarded the whole movie just with a pencil on a bunch of cards, but I really want to I want to do an edit on the computer just to make sure everything kind of flows, and just to really make sure I haven't like forgotten anything important, and so that I can shoot everything on a set when I need it, and then I can take it down, because I'm going to be reusing some of the bricks to save money. So so yeah, I'm trying to do it as economical as possible, and also as I guess professional as possible. Just make sure everything is set before we even start shooting, so that it can look the best it can look.
Yeah.
I mean, pre-production is just is so important. You don't realize how much you need like storyboards and that kind of stuff until you do it.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. Yeah, I feel like when I start animating, that's actually going to be one of the faster processes of the whole project, because I up till now I've been having to decide how everything looks, and finding the actors and all that, and just all the little details. And then finally, when you get all those set, it's like, oh, I can finally start shooting, and I have everything, and I can just kind of relax and just be in the moment of having fun animating.
Yeah, And I think that it varies depending on the size of the project. You know, like pre-production for a much larger project is going to save you time and effort in the long run. But if you just make a 1 minute short, I don't think it requires all that much.
No,
Yeah.
what I usually do, if it's a very short project, like especially if you've got a time limit, like with Brawl, what I usually do is I will do a shot list. So just write down the sort of shots and the type of shots they are. You know, have a description of what each shot's going to be, so then you at least have you know how many shots you want, but you don't have to go through the effort of actually like drawing them. But yeah, when it comes to like a bigger project, definitely storyboards can help, especially if it's a complicated scene.
Yeah, it's very different from the way I've done Minilife Chronicles, because those ones, obviously, they're just little shorts, and those ones I just sort of did whatever is in my head that I felt looked good. I knew what the script was, and I knew what shots needed to be done, and I just kind of made it up as I went along, because I didn't want to spend too much time on them, because those are just supposed to be placeholders for the audience to watch while I'm doing the movie. And yeah, I think the only thing I storyboarded in Minilife Chronicles so far is just the first one with Melvin the Ninja when he's in his fights, because I always have to storyboard fight sequences.
But I think that worked well. That sequence came out really nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I was going to mention that the ninja one was particularly good, like the animation and the visuals, and you could tell it was storyboarded. I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was the sequence that I chose when I made my Lego Studios history video, and I had the comparison between an early film and a more recent film.
That's right. Yeah, I was very flattered by that.
So I guess it must have stood out.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun to do. But again, even like rewatching it now, I know I could do it better, because I had to do it all on green screen, and if I had the time, I would have actually like made the set. But I think it turned out good for what it was, and I'm really glad that, because as much as these Minilife Chronicles are a placeholder just for us to have some content in between season 5 and the movie, it's also my way of testing out a bunch of new techniques that I've wanted to try. And it's obviously no one's going to know this from watching them, but there's lots of things in there that I'm going to be using in the movie. And I specifically wrote parts in like Minilife Chronicles for me to try out, so that I can test them in Minilife Chronicles, so that I can perfect them by the time I get to the movie.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so really, really, Minilife Chronicles is just a big test project.
Well, a very successful test project, I would say, because
a lot of effort for a test project.
Yeah, well, I've had a tendency to do too much.
Well, I think everyone's amazed by the amount that you can make, you know, by making entire seasons, like 15 episodes long. I don't know if there's any secret to it, or if you're just lucky to have a certain type of drive. Yeah, because I know that I feel like I struggle with motivation to even shoot a single shot.
Yeah, I guess. I guess part of it is just a love of storytelling and wanting to like keep it going. And as I was doing Minilife more, gradually started to like really love the characters and shaping the world and stuff. So it was really fun, and I'm sure any animator can attest to this, that animating is like a kind of a cathartic experience. Like, it doesn't, no matter what you're going through in the world, or what horrible things you might see in the news, you can always kind of relax and chill, just like being in the zone of animating, and throwing on some music and just letting yourself get lost in what you're doing. And so yeah, it's kind of therapeutic in that way. So that's one of the things that motivates me. And then of course also because we get tons of our friends over to voice for this, and no, everyone does it for free. No one's ever been paid to be on Minilife. So like when people volunteer their time to come out, and then they let me direct them, and then you get the recordings. It's like it's like it's partly you want to make it for them too, because they give you your time and you want to turn it into something good. So I guess there's lots of factors that sort of drive me. Though I have to admit, like when me and Ian were like doing our live stream recently of all the seasons, even then, like sometimes when I look back, I'm like, how the heck did I make all this? Like, it seems impossible.
But I can definitely relate to the process of animation being like sort of Zen experience, and for some reason, I don't know why, but I just feel like it's always built up in my head, like, I have to get going, and the hardest part is just starting, for me at least.
Yeah.
Once I'm actually animating, it's fine.
What times of day do you guys most like to animate?
Well, I guess, well, especially like right now, because we just hit summer, I prefer the nighttime because that's when it's cooler. But even just in general, I usually prefer working at night, just because there's something nice about, like, you feel like the rest of the world is kind of gone to sleep, and you can kind of just focus, and you don't have to worry about anyone interrupting you.
I agree. It feels like time has stopped.
Yeah, and you can just kind of like be in your own element.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly how I feel. Because for the first couple of years, I never animated at night. Until I think it was like when you do THAC, you have to do it overnight. And one of the things I felt was that I actually really enjoyed it. It was really calming and relaxing, and you just listen to the right music and everything, and you just kind of get into like the zone, which I never really felt during the day. I used to find animating really stressful, and I used to be swearing all the time every time I animated, but I don't feel that way anymore for the most part, because I feel so kind of like everything you've done during the day, you don't feel guilty about not doing stuff or whatever, because everything that you could have done has been done. So you just have this weight off your mind, and you just feel really in the zone,
Yeah, I mean, one of my I remember specifically like shooting season 4. I had a routine where I guess around maybe 7 or 8, I'd go to Starbucks. I would drive to Starbucks, throw on my Arctic Monkeys album, get in the zone, and then I'd go get a cafe mocha, chat up a bit with the baristas, and then come back and start animating while listening to music and drinking my coffee. And it was a very nice routine for a while.
Oh, nice.
But sadly that's not the way it can be anymore. That Starbucks closed, all the baristas left, and of course now the whole world is upside down. So yeah, but yeah, animating at night is, I think, the best.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's one of those sort of things you don't really think about it until you try it, and then when it comes to like animating at night, you just kind of want to do that from now on,
Yeah, the only thing now that gets in the way is like when you have work, the next day you can't go too long because it's like, oh, I gotta get up early tomorrow, or I can't be too tired. And yeah, it's definitely it's hard to find a good balance between work and what you want to do, and that just goes for anything. It's not even just animating, but it's like it's always hard to find a good balance in life between your actual life and the things you want to do, and then what you have to do for money.
I think it's even hard as well, like when you have to juggle that with studying as well. Because I finished my second year of university, about a month ago now, and there's always like a good few months each year where I just can't animate really, just because you just don't have the energy, and you have to get up early in the morning, and
Yeah, I don't know how much of a of a role model I would be for this, but because when I started Minilife, I was still in college, and then as I was getting more into Minilife and doing that with college, it started to get really draining. So I actually decided to quit college so I can keep doing Minilife. And yeah, so that was kind of my solution. I just quit school.
Well, that's some dedication.
Yeah, I always remember this one night that I think was kind of like a turning point for me, where I only had enough time, because we had already started like Minilife, and I only had enough time to either animate Minilife or do my math homework. And I knew that if I didn't get to the Minilife work that night, we wouldn't have been able to make our Friday schedule, which, you know, back then was still really consistent. And so I was like, well, Minilife or math, it's gonna be Minilife. And I ended up dropping out of that math class.
Well, that's another good fits into the discussion of like having to find balance. And I know it might sound strange, but like you do have to like do what makes you happy.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like, if you're just doing the work that some other place requires of you, and you're not really pursuing what you want to do, then you know, you're not really living. You're just kind of surviving. And yeah, it's important. It's always important to make time for your goals.
It's kind of funny because this is, you know, you're like our second guest in a row who's kind of talked about this and how they kind of dropped out to pursue brick filming and, you know, just continue doing that and just do the stuff which makes them happy, I guess. Really, I mean, I think that is hugely important. Just do what makes you happy. If you feel that you're not gaining something from, you know, something, then I think it's best to just do, like, yeah, just sort of, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Like when because when I started college, I was excited, just like you know, I think most college students, like, oh, I'm gonna be learning lots of cool stuff. I'll probably make a bunch of new friends, and I was excited to go to college. And then I learned very quickly, like, oh, this is kind of just like high school, except now I'm paying for it. And yeah, I'd say the best thing that came out of my whole college experience was that's where me and Ian became better friends. So yeah, and that's.
So did you know him before college?
Yeah, we met in high school. It's funny. I feel like telling my own past is kind of a spoiler for the movie.
Oh,
but yeah, this will all be vaguely covered in the movie. Yeah, me and Ian, we met in high school. We had a class together our senior year, and we hit it off pretty quick. But you know, like, that's our senior year, so like you don't really have time to like become best friends with somebody your last year of high school. In fact, like, really, there's no point to it. In fact, that was my attitude. I'm like, why do I need to make new friends? I'm not going to see them ever again. But then, coincidentally, we just ended up going to the same college, Cal State Long Beach, and it was the only college I applied to, and this is how I make decisions. I only applied to it because we took a field trip there, and I liked how it looked. So like, oh, okay, yeah, this is it. I'll apply here.
Well, I guess it turned out to be a good decision in the end.
Yeah. I remember
in a roundabout sort of way.
My teachers and counselors were all like, "You only applied to one college," but it worked out. I got in, and then yeah.
I mean, I did the exact same thing. I literally only applied to one college too. Well, literally, it was the only one which was within like living distance of me, and I just thought, if I don't get it here, then I don't really have the money to afford accommodation, so I'm just gonna not do it otherwise.
Yeah, I think that was definitely an influence on me, because I had a dog, and I still do, and I was like, I can't dorm anywhere because I need to be home so I can take care of my dog. So I needed a college that I could just drive to. So
the dog always comes first.
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, most of my best ideas with writing have come out of walking my dog. because I guess just sort of like animating, being able to just get out and walk your dog. It kind of helps you to just like clear your mind, and you can just kind of just think about stuff and let your mind wander. And I've gotten so many ideas just off of just in the middle of a dog walk without even trying to think. And that's what I'm on this podcast to advocate. Everyone get a dog and go walk them and love them and give them treats.
And that's how to make good brick films.
Yeah, but as long as you remain 2 meters apart from everyone else.
Oh yeah, and get your dog a mask. Yeah. In fact, I came up with the lyrics for the Minilife TV theme song while walking my dog, because I remember I had been trying forever just to like think of something, because it was very like sort of last minute that we did the theme song, because Ian was part of this band called the Gritties, and at the time like he had kind of gone back and forth saying like, oh, we might be able to do the song, I don't know, and then like not long before season 4 was going to be starting, he was like, yeah, okay, we can do it, yeah, you can write something. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I was trying to think, and I just couldn't. And then one day, without even thinking about the song, I was out in the middle of a dog walk, and the lyrics just started coming to me. Or I guess like the beat, the lyrics with like the beat of the music. And I was like, oh, that's good. And then more came, like, oh, that's really, I like that. And I was like, oh man, I gotta get home. Because I didn't have my phone or anything.
Part when you have a good idea, you don't want to forget it.
Yeah. So yeah, we raced home and like, come on. My dog's name is Cubone, so I'm like, come on, Cubone, come on, let's go. Don't pee on that bush. Come on. And yeah, so I wrote it all down and sent it to Ian. That's how we ended up with our theme song.
That makes sense, because the later version of the theme song, the like third wave ska sounding version, is sounds pretty professional.
Yeah, that's because it was recorded professionally.
Yeah. Nice. So, who made the original version, like the season 1 theme song? That's pretty weird.
That was me. It was, but like I didn't really like make it. From what I remember, it was 2 royalty-free tracks that I got, and I sort of meshed them together, and I put a whole bunch of weird filters on it. I don't like trying to think of it. I can't even really think of like what the noise is, because it's just like a noise. It's not like even really music. It's just a bunch of random stuff, which is kind of a perfect representation of the first season. But funny enough, the only thing that I did come up with for that was it's time to have some fun, it's time to get things done. And that was always supposed to be just a placeholder, because when I came up with it, I was like, I feel like that's from something. I'm sure I've heard that somewhere before. But I still have never heard that anywhere else. So I think that's our own original thing. But then, funny enough, that's like the only part of that translated onto the official like theme song for season 4 and beyond, which is, it's time to have some fun and get things done.
Yeah. But the original's so short that that's basically the whole thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And one of the things I'm really excited about for the movie is we're going to be having an original soundtrack. And our friends that worked on the theme song, they're going to be doing the soundtrack. So we've already started a few discussions here and there. It's going to be more to talk about like when I actually, get footage and stuff. But yeah, I'm very excited to have our own original soundtrack for a film.
Yeah, that's always great. I really like when the music is part of the identity of a series, and it's consistent with the same composer.
Yeah, that's why I'm so glad that we're getting the same people back that did the theme song, because yeah, it's like that's sort of the sound of Minilife. It's sort of this weird quirky ska sound, and that's Minilife. Minilife is just a weird, quirky, animated series.
Yeah, that it is nice if you can have like the same composers and stuff, because it's like having your own sort of John Williams.
Yeah.
Someone that's kind of, you always associate with your films type of thing.
Yeah, that's why I'm just I'm so excited. That's the only part of the movie that I don't have to worry about, because I know those guys are going to come up with great stuff. So the soundtrack is the one thing I'm like, oh, that's going to be great regardless. I just have to worry about everything else.
I always feel that way whenever I have an original soundtrack lined up. It just kind of feels like, it's going to be great. Whatever it is, I know I'm going to like it.
Yeah, it's nice to have a John Williams.
So actually, how is it that you got involved with working on some of Paul Hollingsworth's films?
Well, the story there is that I went to a Comic-Con that they had in Long Beach. When was that? I think 2015. And Forrest was there. He was speaking at some panel. And so I wanted to go to see if I could meet him. Him, Sean Willits, and Paul Hollingsworth were also there. So I ended up meeting all three of them. And I showed them a bit of my animation. I showed them the first episode of season 5 because that had just come out. And then Paul was like, "Yeah, that's pretty good. I have this little studio. Here's my card. I'll be in touch. Blah blah blah." And then a few weeks later, he emailed me saying like, "Oh, hey, I'm looking for an animation assistant. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah." So yeah, I took the job, and yeah, that's how I ended up working with Paul for a while, and then also became friends with Forrest and Sean.
Nice.
Wow.
It's I think for the two of us, it's kind of hard to relate to being able to make connections in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then I also I got to meet Zach Macias once at a party that Paul was throwing, and there's quite a few animators there, in the Brickfilming community. Me, Paul, Forrest, Sean, Zach Macias.
Can't say I'm not jealous getting the chance to do that kind of thing, because literally they, for months and months, actually a couple of years, I was getting really hyped at this idea of meeting up with some brick filmers for Brick Fair 2020. It's going to be this huge thing. I was really looking forward to it, and then and
then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Yeah.
The world went upside down, and
the same thing happened to me. 2020 was supposed to be the year.
Yeah, everyone's plans in 2020 just went out the window. I was already supposed to be shooting the Minilife movie at the beginning of 2020, but then something else happened, and so I just like to say 2020 doesn't count. This year doesn't count. We're not even having birthdays this year. You get to keep your age, and you age next year.
That sounds like a good deal. Yeah.
And actually, on that note, do you think the Minilife movie will probably come out 2021, not 2020?
I'd say that's a very good bet. Yeah. There's been no studio announcement yet. There's nothing on no announcements on the Hollywood Reporter, but I can speak from a reliable source. It's looking that way.
But yeah, I guess I kind of feel awkward in that I've already released like one of my my big projects in 2020, and I'm hoping to release another one. So everyone will be like, "Oh, 2020, worst year ever," and I'll just be like, "Well, I made some good things. I thought it was pretty good."
Yeah, I'm actually like super busy, and I'm glad that even though the movie's not coming out this year, I do have other things that will be coming out. The rest of Minilife Chronicles, that'll be out. They'll all be out before the end of the year, and I'm also working on this Lego Star Wars project with my friend Alex Pearson, or AKP Studios.
Nice.
So I won't talk too much about that because that's his project, and I don't think he's made a formal announcement yet, so I don't want to go into details. But it's good to have things in the fire,
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear that he's working on something major, because I know he did, what was it, maybe stick-bot animations, but other than that, I feel like I haven't seen like a big Lego project from him in a while.
Yeah, he's been really busy with stick-bot. That's been like his main job for a while. But yeah, we're working on something. I think it'll be good. I think I think people will like it.
Sweet. So how many more of the Minilife Chronicles are you planning to release?
Let's see. Because we already did 6, so yeah. So there's 4 left because, because there's supposed to be 10. So yeah, there's 4 left.
Nice.
I think I've already revealed like about 3 of them on like who they're focused on in the live stream. If not, I'll say them right now. I'm only gonna say 3. So the next one is gonna be about Abel and Master Quoker, and then after that, I don't know the order after that, but there's gonna be one about Baby Crotch Rash, and then also one about Chip, our old robot security guard.
Ah, cool.
So yeah, any of our audience who's listening right now, you guys can look forward to that.
So one of the things I was actually wondering about, kind of related to, because you mentioned it about showing the first episode of season 5 at the convention and stuff to Paul Hollingsworth. There was quite a big gap between that and the second episode of the series. Was that intentional, or
no?
did stuff come up?
Oh man, that bummed me out so much. It happened because if you remember, I think it's like the first 4 episodes of season 5. I used that face replacement technique where I had the custom faces, and yeah, that just ended up taking way too much time, and I should have realized it earlier, but I didn't. I felt like I could like just push through and keep going, but it just ended up being too challenging and I realized it was affecting my animation because I got to the point where I was so focused on trying to align the faces with like the previous frame that I was kind of ignoring all the other animation around it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that way it was really just inhibiting me a lot, and so that caused a big delay. And yeah, so that's why halfway through the season I went back to the mouth technique. But yeah, I guess it's just the only good thing from that, I would say, is it was a good learning experience of like, you know, this is it looks cool, but it's not effective. It's not time effective. And it was costly too. Yeah, those custom faces cost a lot.
Where did you get the custom faces from?
I believe it was from Minifigs Me.
Ah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely imagine spending way too long trying to align the eyes and the hair between every frame.
Oh, yeah.
To get it just right. But I do always like the look of real face replacement in Brickfilms.
Yeah.
As rare as it is.
I got the idea from Donald Faison's Black Stormtrooper Brickfilm. Because if you guys have seen that one, he uses them on that. And I thought it looked cool. And I thought, in my hubris, I thought I could perfect it. But alas, I could not. So, yeah. But now it's good that I experimented with that, because now I feel like I've landed on the technique that I really enjoy, and the one I'm going to be using for the movie, which I've used for Minilife Chronicles, which is I erase the mouth completely, and then just put it on digitally.
Yeah, I'd say that you get to mimic the look of the face replacement quite well with like you did later on in season 5 and in Minilife Chronicles. That look is pretty good.
Yeah, it's I've found erasing the mouth and then putting it on in post production just gives me so much more freedom to have them, you know, have an expression that like of, you know, whatever I want, whatever they're supposed to be feeling. It's funny because now I really, when I'm casting my Lego figures, you know, when I'm looking for the heads, I cast by the eyes because that's all I'm animating with. So it's really fun, and I feel like I have a lot more freedom to just do whatever I want now, because I don't have to be so true to what they make. Like, you know, if there's a Lego figure with like eyes that I like, but he has a beard, I can erase the beard and then just put on a regular mouth, and like in a sense, I've created a totally new Lego figure.
Yeah.
And like one of my favorite ones is it's like a simple one, but the one with Jack, the Minilife Chronicles with Jack, because at that up to that point, Jack always had to be smiling because, you know, he has the classic Lego face, and his is actually like classic because it's like sort of the bigger, like chunkier head, if you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, he always had to have that face, and then now I was able to erase the mouth, so now we're able to see a lot more of, like, you know, what the characters are like now. Like, I feel like I can do so much, and yeah, it's so freeing, and I'm so glad that I found this technique.
I'm currently working on my first film that will have digital mouth animation, and I'm doing the same trick of erasing the mouths on the heads. But if there's a character in the background out of focus who's supposed to have a mouth shape that isn't a real Lego head, I just like cut a really tiny shape out of black light control foil and blue tack it onto the head, so that it looks good out of focus in the background, and the focus is incredibly consistent with how the camera looks because it's real. So I feel like that's a pretty good trick.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, blur definitely is very helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
But also, like, I guess one of the things I learned from working with Paul, because like when we did his Ghostbusters video, he he had me animate with just a totally blank face, and then he had one of his VFX guys put it on in post-production. And I've never really liked the technique of putting a whole digital face, because it's sort of like, even if it's a big production movie, there's something about, like, if you don't get the eyes quite right on a character, it just looks fake. And so I've found that, like, digital Lego eyes, there's just always something that I don't know, they seem kind of lifeless, or it just doesn't seem to be quite there. Just like with, you know, a digital character in a big blockbuster movie. So yeah, in my opinion, keeping the real eyes and then putting on a digital mouth is sort of like the best of both worlds, of like keeping part of it real and then another part CGI, but you have the freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So, what software do you use to do the mouth animation? Do you use like After Effects or?
It's kind of you could say it's kind of like a Photoshop After Effects program. I always feel so awkward talking about it because I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the world who still uses this program. It's called Microsoft Digital Image Suite. I think it came with like a camera that we bought a long time ago. It's basically like a basic Photoshop program that I started using a long time ago, and then I've just never upgraded to another one, because surprisingly every time I've upgraded to a computer, a better computer, it still runs on it.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what I use to make the mouths, and then I track them in Hitfilm. Do you guys know that program?
Yeah, that's what I use. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I do, and then I edit the actual like video clips in Sony Vegas.
Yeah, like for me, I've literally, because I do the mouth animation on mine, and I've literally used the same method for like the entire time that I've been animating, and actually I might consider erasing the mouths or something like that, just to have it a bit more unique, because my method is quite basic.
Yeah, it's a good technique. I think everyone's going to be using it in the future, you know? It's going to start a trend.
And something I've noticed in creating digital mouths is that, like, I guess this would play into why the eyes might look fake if you replace the whole face, but the value of the color black, when you're putting it on digitally, it doesn't, unless you alter it, it often doesn't match how the rest of the black ink looks in the actual shot. that you've photographed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's another reason I like to have the eyes, because I use the black in the eyes as a reference for the mouth. And also, like, when they have pupils, I use that as a reference for the teeth.
Yeah. I've done the same. I've tried to determine if, like, the black of the eyes is being influenced by some light, try to match it.
Yeah, and then I've also realized that if you have like a bigger close up on a Lego face, to where like you can kind of see the inconsistency on the edge of the eyes, like for the printing. I try to replicate that a little bit on the mouths if it's like a big close up, because you don't want it to look too sharp, because it's still supposed to kind of look like it was printed on. And I study clips from the Lego Movie every now and then, because they did a really good job of making the figures, have like little scratches and stuff, and just making it look like they were still played with, even though they're CGI.
For sure. If digital mouth animation is done really well, it's like, it has to have been done digitally, but if it's done really well and it looks really nice, I feel like it can come across better than even well done face replacement.
Yeah, it's I think it's all about just striking a balance. And sometimes in my spare time I just like to practice doing faces now, because I know I'm going to be doing a lot more in the future. And because with Minilife, the direction I'm trying to go is more towards like an anime kind of style. I study a lot of anime expressions, and then I study a lot of the Lego heads that have sort of big mouth expressions. And then I try to find like a middle ground between the two, so I can get kind of a Lego anime kind of look, because that's really what I want to try to go for in the future. And I think it'll show a lot more in the movie, because that's where I'm gonna like be putting it out on the table. But I want Minilife TV to be sort of like the first Lego anime.
I've really liked the digital work that you've done, especially in the recent Minilife Chronicles, because I feel like a lot of the time, especially in the past, when Brickfilms used a lot of digital elements, they were kind of just like slapped on with very little regard. But I feel like the digital work in Minilife Chronicles especially, it all feels like a very deliberate style that has some thought put into it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely, I mean, that's all part of me trying to keep it consistent. I mean, as soon as I had the tools to do some like digital work, like buildings and stuff, I just got really excited, because now I can do like what I was always picturing. And that's kind of like why I had a new understanding and respect for George Lucas's decisions to like go back and put stuff in the original trilogy, because like I understand from his perspective that like even though he was able to make something great back then, he still wasn't able to get everything looking the way he wanted to, because he had such a grand vision. And when he finally had the technology to do it, he wanted to go back and try to improve it. And some of it didn't turn out so well. I don't know why we need a big CGI monster walking in front of the screen, but other parts of it, they look really great. And I feel like the changes he's made to it, I think they get a little too much hate, and I definitely have like a better regard for them and understanding after going through my own sort of evolution of having new technology to shape your world.
I guess it might, talking about it a bit too much might get a bit off track, but I do think that when it comes to people argue about George Lucas's changes, a lot of them people talk about are the obvious ones, whereas there are a lot of subtle ones that people probably don't even realize are actually changes, like especially the ones in The Empire Strikes Back, like the in
like Cloud
City.
Yeah,
like a lot of the changes, like the green screen work on that,
I
is actually
like
really
the
good.
Cloud City changes.
I don't think many people are aware that like the inside of Cloud City looked a lot more boring before they opened up the windows. And
but I guess most people agree that like it wouldn't be such a big deal if he just allowed the originals to be released as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the sticking point for most people.
Yeah, it's a bit like releasing a director's cut and then stopping people from watching the original. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah, I can understand that. There's some part of me that would like to rewatch them, because I grew up with the originals because we had them on Laserdisc. That's how old I am. And so I actually did grow up with the original trilogy, and I understand George Lucas's sort of perspective. It's his thing, and he created it, so he has like the final say on how he thinks it should look. And if there's something there he doesn't want anymore in it, then that's up to him. But at the same time, I do understand that like the people that grew up with it and that want to see like the original versions, and even probably just from a historical
context,
cinematic history, it's probably important to preserve them.
Well, I'm pretty sure that there's a funny story where you know how there's like certain films that are preserved for being historically relevant. I think that there's a story where they wanted to preserve the original Star Wars, and they asked George Lucas for a copy of like the original Star Wars, and he refused to give it to them. And they said, well, we're not trying to preserve the new version for its historical value. We're trying to preserve what actually made the biggest impact upon release for historical value. And what they did was they went and found the version that had been submitted to get an age rating, and they just took that and preserved it.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. It's it's funny. I don't know. Star Wars has a lot of interesting behind the scenes to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have to go too much into Star Wars. I just wanted to share my understanding and perspective, like George Lucas doing changes in terms of me being able to finally shape Minilife into looking the way I want it to look. And yeah, that's another reason why I'm so excited for doing this movie, because I'm really going bigger than anything I've ever done before, and we're gonna have some really big sets, some very intricate sets, and it's I guess all I can really say is it's gonna have the Minilife style to it that I've always strived for and wanted to show, to make it look like it's its own world and not our world,
Yeah. Oftentimes I feel like I have many ideas for Brickfilms, but nowhere near the time and motivation to actually make them. But yeah, certainly you have these like visions in your mind of what you could do if you had unlimited resources, and you just work on getting closer and closer to achieving something resembling the vision.
Yeah. I think that's how it is with like pretty much every film. I don't think any filmmaker has ever really made a film where they walk away and are 100% like, yep, that is exactly how I was picturing it. I got to do everything I wanted to do. You always have to compromise with stuff.
Yeah, I think when you have this image in your head, when you start out, it generally looks nothing like the way you want it to look. But the more that you develop your skills and everything, it starts to become a little bit more like the way you imagined it. And when you look back at sort of like, you look at your more recent stuff, I think it does make you happy when you kind of think, this somewhat resembles what I was thinking about, how I envisioned it, even if it's not like a direct like picture, but at least it is somewhat resembling it.
Yeah, and that's actually like why I think it sounds kind of crazy to some people that like I had always intended from the beginning to go back and make a movie of Minilife about Chris and Ian when we like first met and stuff, and like when we had started like shortly after we started, I was like, one day I want to go back and actually tell the story of like how Chris and Ian met. And I know that can sound kind of crazy because it's like, well, if you knew that at the beginning, why didn't you just do it? I know I needed to grow a lot. I needed to become a better animator, a better writer, a better voice actor. I needed to improve my skills a lot before I was ready to do that. But I was always aiming to make a movie, and really just each season of Minilife was me just trying to hone my skills and become a little bit better until I felt like I was ready to do it. In fact, I was actually going to be making the movie after season 4, but I felt like I needed one more season to really hone my skills, and I guess even that technically wasn't enough because I did Minilife Chronicles, but yeah, that's I forgot why I started saying this.
Well, I do think that that's a great way to learn. To actually take on a big project, you learn a lot.
Yeah, it's literally just keep making things, isn't it? And
Yeah,
kind of gradually get to that point.
That's also one of the reasons that I decided to quit school. It wasn't just that like, oh, I like Minilife better. It's like I actually sat down and was thinking like, I feel like I can get a lot more out of Minilife. I feel like it can teach me a lot more if I keep at this as opposed to going to college and having to take a bunch of classes that I don't want to take, but I have to take them. And then every semester or so, I get to take one class where it teaches me some of the stuff I want to learn. I was like, I feel like I can just get a lot more out of Minilife. And so that was ultimately one of the bigger reasons why I quit college in favor of Minilife TV.
So, with the Minilife Chronicles and now the film in mind, does the prospect of doing another series and making one a week seem sort of scary? Because of the how much you've honed your skills and everything, and how much you've developed.
No, because basically because I get to, because one of the other reasons that the process of making this film is taking so long is because I've been trying to spend all this time learning and really honing my skills, and so when I jump back into when I do season 6, I get to carry all that with me. So I'll already have all of the knowledge that I've already acquired, and basically, yeah, it'll go a lot faster because I already know from doing seasons 1 through 5. I know the ins and outs of doing a series versus doing a movie. I feel like a movie has sort of a bit more pressure to it because you're trying to tell a big story in a confined amount of time, whereas with a series, I feel like I can breathe a bit more, and I can linger on things that I want to really focus on, for a character or something. And yeah, I feel like a series is more relaxing to do.
Yeah, I think that even once you've overhauled how you make things and you've gotten to a better place creatively, I think it is possible to kind of slip back into the old ways if necessary. Not even in a bad way.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a balancing act. You want to bring what you learned, but then don't go too far back, but then also take it easy. Basically just have some fun and get things done.
Hey. In some ways, you can sort of think to yourself that because when you hone your skills, things take longer. But I think you reach a certain point where simple things, or even difficult things, just seem to be sort of second nature. You just get so used to doing those sort of things that you don't really think about it even. And you just naturally are sort of, I guess, good at animating.
Yeah, well, I could say that, definitely one of the positive things about, every episode of Minilife has always had something that I've never done before. There's always, some new thing I've had to learn for every episode. And it kind of keeps me on my toes. But then I've also had many moments, later on where, I have to do something kind of similar to what I've done before. And then I'm like, oh, I already know this because I've already, learned it. I've already put the time in. And so yeah, what you were saying, you can, once you learn it, you can it's not so scary.
Yeah.
And I guess also to answer your question of if it continuing with the series after the movie kind of seems overwhelming, doing anything big is always a little scary, but at the same time I'm more excited to do it because I can tell you I'm already writing season 6 even when I'm doing this movie, I've already started writing season 6. I'm developing new characters. I've already started making plans, and I'm putting things in, like these mini life chronicles that will being fully realized in like future seasons, season 6, season 7, and yeah. So I could say I'm a little intimidated, but I'm more excited because I'm still. Nothing has stopped me from still planning. There's still lots of mini life to come.
That's quite a remarkable amount of planning ahead.
Yeah, well, I think that's just all has to do with, again, trying to be consistent and make sure I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
When I started the podcast, I always used to sort of think, oh yeah, the better you get at brick filming, the harder it is to kind of like do the simplest things. But I think that you do reach a certain point where anything just becomes a little bit easier. You just have to reach that kind of point. And once you get beyond that point, stuff just does end up becoming easier, I guess.
Yeah, I guess once you know it, you can do it. It's kind of like, it's like learning any new skill. It can be hard at first, and there's some stuff you have to work out. But then once you get your groove, you can do anything.
But do you ever consider making anything outside of Minilife TV?
Do you mean like animation or just like anything?
Brickfilm specifically, I guess.
I don't think so, because really Minilife TV is sort of, we call it a show about everything, because it's really supposed to give me the freedom, or give us the freedom, to tell any kind of stories we want. And that's sort of one of my favorite things about having our own world with our own rules is we can send our characters anywhere. We can have them do any kind of story we want, and as long as we're smart about the writing, we can make it work within the world. So yeah, because I don't feel like I need to do any other kind of brick film, because I feel like I can explore everything I want to explore in Minilife. And Ian also kind of feels the same way, because even when we're in the middle of like these big projects of the movie, him and I still have times where like he'll hit me up and be like, oh hey, next time I see you, I want to talk to you about some ideas I had for my character for the next season, or like I had this idea for a funny episode, and yeah, we're always planning. We're always planning stuff, and we're always, I don't know, there's always something to explore in Minilife, so I don't feel like I really need to do any kind of other brick film.
That does make a lot of sense, actually, because within Minilife, the world of Minilife TV, you've been able to incorporate, all kinds of genres and all kind of like characters, and if there's a story you want to tell, there's no reason why you can't do it within that world that you created.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I would say the only thing that I have thought about every now and then, that I always wanted to do, because I never really got to do a big thing of it, is a Lego Star Wars brick film. But now I'm finally working on that with Alex, so that's kind of fulfilling the one thing I've always wanted to work on other than Minilife. So yeah. I have a question. I'm kind of curious what you guys think about the current state of brick films, of like the kind of content we see, like, because I feel like there's so much brick films that are based on like Star Wars or Batman or Marvel, and I feel like there's a lack of original stories, because I feel like we used to have a lot more original stories back in like sort of the brickfilms.com day, as opposed to now where everything is kind of based off of a franchise,
Well, a lot of it depends on where you focus on to see new brick films. I feel like if you're in a bunch of brick filming Discord servers, you'll see people posting original brick films that don't get much attention otherwise.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's probably it, because I guess that's also another thing is I feel like it's kind of hard to find Brickfilms these days. Like, I don't know, I feel like it's just not, because obviously YouTube, it keeps changing and growing, and the algorithm just keeps getting more complex, and it's tough to find anything. And I guess again, I don't know too much about Discord. Maybe that's the best way. But yeah, I do feel like it's kind of tough to find Brickfilms, and it's tough when you make Brickfilms. It's tough to get it out there.
Yeah, it's funny actually, because I mean we have talked about this sort of stuff in the past, but not like actually for quite a while. But yeah, I feel like I'm much more conscious of the original Brickfilms being released. The Brickfilms that are solely not based on an existing IP, and I don't feel like I was necessarily that conscious of it a couple of years ago, but Discord and the communities surrounding it do sort of highlight a lot of the original stuff that's actually being released, and in reality there is still a lot of original content being released. I think a lot of it is just it is very much a niche.
It is harder to find.
You have to kind of and I think there is also another thing as well, like you said about how it is hard to find Brickfilms, and the way the algorithm works now, YouTube doesn't necessarily support animators, and that's not like something that's something that's been well known for years. But like,
definitely,
you don't really see Brickfilms or any animated content in general being on the recommended or on the front page of YouTube.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I think that just the way the algorithm works now, you don't really get many new Brickfilmers that get like huge followings.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wish like we had our own website. The only one that I'm really aware of these days is Bricks in Motion, and I feel like it's hard to find things on there just like it is on YouTube, and I feel like it could be better. I don't know who runs it, so I don't want to like throw shade on anybody, but just in terms of like for finding Brickfilms and stuff, I feel like it could be better, or like we could have like a better website for Brickfilms.
Well, on a related note, it kind of feels like the Bricks in Motion, the activity has moved to Discord. The Bricks in Motion Discord is now where everything really happens.
Yeah, the shift was definitely about 2017, and because up until then we were still using the ancient IRC chat, and it was it was that old system where unless people were actively having a conversation in the chat when you were on the chat, you never really interacted with the people. With Discord, it works so that you can pretty much just log on at any time, and you can get involved in a conversation which started hours ago. So it works quite a lot like a forums in some ways.
That's funny. It sounds to me like there's this whole brick filming community that's just operating in the shadows. I don't know about. They all meet up in this cybernetic room. So, have there been any recent Brickfilms on there that have kind of like blown up or like got popularity from Discord that like they otherwise wouldn't?
I don't know. I don't think that stuff like gets popularity from Discord. More sort of like, I don't know how exactly I'd like to phrase it, but if certain people might share something on certain Discord servers, then bigger brick filmers might see it, or like, people you might have looked up to, been influenced by.
Well, I guess to some degree there are definitely there's some big names on there. You've got people like Zach Macias and Nathan Wells, and it's a chance for you to interact with a lot of people that you may otherwise not get a chance to actively interact with outside of like Twitter. So I think people start to really get invested with you as a person, I guess, as a personality. So a lot of like friendships get developed on Discord, I think, and also I think people follow people in general rather than like a particular brick film.
Yeah, it's if you want popularity or views, it's not going to do much for you. But if you want to sort of network with brick filmers or get your film in front of eyes you'd like to get it in front of, then Discord is probably one of the ways to go about it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go there when I have a trailer for the Minilife movie. I'm still very new to Discord. I think I've only used it once, about a month or so ago, for the first time, when my friends wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, because we can't meet up anymore, so we did it like virtually. So I still don't. I honestly still don't know how it all works. It's the kind of thing that makes me feel old. Just like when me and Ian were doing our Twitch streams, I had trouble just figuring out how to set it all up.
Well, I'm sure if you joined some of the brick filming Discord servers and got involved, you'd pick it up in no time. Out of necessity.
Do you remember, Penta, when like Discord was brand new and everyone thought it was a fad? For like literally a couple of weeks, people were like, "Oh, this is not gonna work."
Well, didn't they say the same thing about Twitter?
Probably.
I'm guessing, were you never involved in like Skype chats years back?
I didn't even know those were a thing. I mean, I've used Skype just to talk to friends. Like that's how I got to know Thomas Evans, because he hit me up after season 4 was finished, and was like, "Hey, we should chat sometime." And then we ended up becoming good friends just over Skype calls, since obviously we can't meet because he lives in Australia. But yeah, now you're saying there's like group chats, or?
Yeah, there used to be loads of brick filmer group chats on Skype.
No, see, I was, I'm kind of on the outer rim of the brick filming community. I don't really know what goes on in the center of it.
Other than Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, other than Twitter, and mostly just a lot of arguing I see on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really like going on there much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, Thomas Evans, he and I have chatted on Skype quite a few times, and he helped me when I was writing the movie. I would throw ideas at him, and he would tell me what he thought, and then he'd give me some ideas. And for a while when I started it, we would have like weekly Skype sessions, and so yeah, I'm actually going to be giving him like a little like credit supervisor or something like that, for the movie, because he was very helpful in his feedback. And when you're taking on something big like a movie, it's good to have someone that you can bounce ideas off of. And Thomas is, I've always thought he was a really, really good story creator and writer. Like his Minecraft series was great.
Yeah, Creepers was extremely well structured.
Yeah, so yeah, but that's about the limits of my Skype stuff. I've just become friends with individuals through there.
That's actually something I haven't really thought about, but I guess there must be, there's a lot of value in just like having someone that within within a community, like a fellow brick filmer, just to talk about ideas and stuff, like in a call. I hadn't really thought about doing that, but sometimes I have I don't generally like writing scripts.
Right.
So when it comes to having to write something that's very dialogue heavy, which I don't do very often, but when it comes to doing it, I feel kind of like I really could do with like someone that could just break it down and tell me what's bad and whatever.
Well, if you ever need help with any of your future scripts, I'd be happy to help, because I love to I love to do that. I love to I just love to collaborate and throw ideas around. So I'm open if you need any feedback on something.
Yeah, that'd be actually really useful. I'll keep that in mind, actually.
Yeah, it's good when you could bounce ideas, especially when I've learned this just in the recent years. Minilife, after a while, it got so big, like the world in general. I was like, I need to talk to people about the ideas I'm having, because Minilife is such a big world. It's helpful to get any kind of feedback. So, yeah, one of the things that I've learned to do that's become very useful, and I think I started learning it by having sessions with Thomas, is just the benefit of just throwing ideas around, and knowing that like, oh, whatever you say, it doesn't have to be permanent. It's just you're just brainstorming, and yeah. So now I do it with a lot of people. I ask them like what they think of something. Friends, anyways. Not like, I don't just throw stuff on Twitter. I would never do that. Twitter seems like the worst place for feedback.
And pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
But do you think we should talk about our picks for the Brickfilm showcase now?
Yeah, I think this is a perfect time to start doing that. Yeah. So, for those of you new to the podcast, the showcase is an opportunity for each of us to talk about Brickfilms that either mean a lot to us or just that we want to talk about in general.
Yours was the Nightly News at 9, right?
Yeah. So my pick was just the Nightly News at 9 series in general. I just thought it'd be a quite a good sort of discussion point because I believe it was a big inspiration to you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let me hit you with it. So the Nightly News at 9 is this fantastic animated series that was created by Dave Pickett, and it revolves around this quirky news station on the planet Figuria, and it's a really colorful and vibrant world, and has a great kind of quirky humor, and it involves this bad guy named Malefios who's trying to always like ruin the city, but he's so bad at it that he just can't get anything right. And it's just a really fantastic world. There's tons of crazy stuff that goes on. There's battles of colors and green and orange. And yeah, if you guys have not seen it, you should totally check it out. There you go. Yeah. You can use that.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's just there's so many interesting, quirky characters, and the world of it is just so colourful and crazy and just really just fun.
Yeah. Anyone who hasn't seen it, you should pause the podcast right now and go watch it, and then come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just love how the characters, just how the characters are. They're just so unique, and there isn't too much of an attempt to kind of like explain the world, but the world just actually just makes so much sense within itself.
It feels larger than it is.
Yeah. You don't need the full explanation of it all to sort of get it. You just kind of get it from watching it. That's like one of the great things about it.
Yeah, and I certainly feel like you can see how Nightly News at 9 would have been an influence on Minilife TV with the amount of world building, and it feels like everything has some creativity put into it. Like, I really like the end of sports installment, and all the sports mentioned are they're just briefly brushed over, but they're all invented sports. They're not real ones.
Yeah. I love just the color wars going on, where you see like an ad for like green or orange, and I don't know. It's just such a funny thing for like people to be arguing about. But like when it's a Lego world, you totally get it.
Yeah, I mean you can definitely apply it to like the real world, like the stuff they're talking about, but it's done in such a clever way.
Yeah. And definitely one of the it was a big influence on me because it sort of harkens back to what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, where at the time it seemed like there was a lot of Brickfilms with sort of more like crude humor and sort of like mean insult humor, and this was like a breath of fresh air to see. Of it's just a fun, colorful world, and everyone's weird and quirky, and nobody's like too overtly mean or anything. They just kind of live in their world and take on whatever comes. And then so yeah, that was definitely a cool thing to see. Like, oh, you can make something, you can make a cool Lego series without all the crude stuff you see in other stuff. And then also just the fact that it was a series, that was really influential to me, because it's like, wow, how often do you see a Lego series on YouTube, Usually you see one video something, and then like months later, and then you see another video from that person. It's like a totally different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I would say basically when I got to the end of Nightly News at 9, I wanted to see more, and obviously he never made more, but it did get me thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was a Lego series that people could just tune into every week and watch it, and there's the same characters and they're always doing something different. And so that's what led me to want to do Minilife TV.
There's so much variety within the world of 9 News at 9, despite obviously there's not a lot of them, but there's so much packed into every episode. And even the commercials that you're saying, there's just so much to admire. And I think one of my favourites is probably the robots commercial. There's just so much going on within that 40 seconds.
Yeah, and there's like some really impressive like animation. Like you look at like anything like with Robophilia, and she's just like always moving, and it's always so interesting, and it's like really impressive. Like I watch it, I'm like, oh man, that's a lot. Like it must have taken a long time.
Yeah, I know. I've been inspired by the like Robophilia animation with the bricks like building up and down to extend limbs.
Yeah.
I really like the Robophilia versus Gravor installment. It's like a classic Mega Man game. There's loads of crazy animation going on there.
Yeah, it's really impressive that he was able to do all that. It's such a cool series.
I also really love everything to do with Malefios is always hilarious. I think especially his failed attempts at trying to destroy Brick City, Block City, sorry. And the interviews, everyone, no one at all is actually that concerned about him because they know he's actually so incompetent. But it's just such a funny world, yeah.
Yeah, it's really strange when I realized that the last time you see like the newest animation with any of the Nightly News at 9 characters were on Minilife TV.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
in season 4, we had Phil and Sherry, and then Malefios covering the World Tournament.
Well, just wait until I release something, and we'll see.
That sounds intriguing.
Well, not confirmed yet, but I have an idea.
Yeah, I just think it's a very creative kind of world, and I could definitely see the inspiration that you had from that is definitely there, And yeah, it's just a very fun series to watch, and honestly, it's you want to kind of always something you want to kind of go back to,
Yeah, and I want to give props to Dave Pickett, just for he was always very supportive of Minilife TV. Like when we started, I remember he would on a lot of our earlier episodes, he would comment on them and leave a good comment, and then the first time I asked him if I could use one of his characters, he was gracious enough to say yes, and that was our first collaboration with another brick filmer. So yeah, the show was great, and then the guy who created it is just as great.
Yeah, so Dave Pickett, if you are listening to this, we're massive fans of 9 News at 9, and we also hope to have you on the podcast sometime soon.
Yeah, it would be great to hear some stories on the production of that. So I hope you guys can get them.
Yeah. Yeah, so Chris, did you want to talk about your pick?
Sure, yeah. So I picked The Great Disturbance, which is I don't even know how old it is. Do you know how old it is?
2004.
2004. Yeah. Wow, it was a year before Revenge of the Sith. So The Great Disturbance, if you have not seen it, and I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't, because it's hard to find. It's not on YouTube. It's on Vimeo. It's about, I guess you can say, it kind of takes place in the prequel era, the Attack of the Clones era. Basically, it's just a fun, quirky Lego Star Wars film, and it's a really big production. It's I think an hour and a half?
Yeah, 75 minutes.
Yeah. And it's all about like the title suggests, there's a great disturbance in the Force, and the Jedi Council senses it, and even Palpatine senses it, and he gets a visit from another Sith Lord, and they're all trying to investigate it. There's a funny line where Palpatine's like, "As much as I hate to admit it, for once there's a disturbance that I'm not responsible for." And so the Jedi Council sends Obi-Wan on this mission to figure out what's causing this disturbance. And then just a lot of weird shenanigans ensue, and it's really impressive. Like, you look at the cinematography, and obviously that's not as great as like what you could do these days, but and the effects of course aren't as great, but even just like, from a story's standpoint and like just the grand scope of like what they did, it's very impressive. And I'm curious because William, you said you hadn't seen it yet, right? And like, this is your first time you saw it?
Yeah, I'd been meaning to watch this for literally years. Which was the only reason why I hadn't really got a chance to see it. It's just I kept saying I'd get to it at some point, and because it's a long brick film, you're just not just getting around to it was difficult. But yeah, I'm really glad that I finally had an excuse to watch it, because it's really good. I really like it. It's there's some really novel techniques, especially for 2004.
Yeah,
there's so many things that I really like about it. Like, one of my favourite parts of it, something that really stood out to me, was the surfing sequence. Just like the cinematography and that, and the way the waves work and everything. That is actually really good, even by today's standards.
Yeah, I really like that the length of the film allows them to do those musical sequences.
Yeah, I always love the part when the YMNs are protesting to the Beatles' revolution, and then the whole sequence of them like building the ship and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, building the ship is a good part.
It's just a hysterical thing to see a huge spaceship run by like a bunch of surfer dudes.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's the Beatles music that means it's not on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I can see.
And so I had it uploaded to Google Drive for a while, which I thought was safe, but it seems that if a film starts to get some attention on Google Drive, it gets scanned. So it got removed from there as well. So it's felt like a bit of a persecuted film. But luckily it's been on Vimeo now for a while.
One thing, though, that is kind of surprising about it, and it's not really a lot of views really in circumstances, but considering that it's been persecuted quite a bit, it's always had a lot of popularity, and the Vimeo video itself has got like well over 300 views, which for something which has been re-uploaded several times in different places, it's nice to see that.
Yeah, well, I think it's because, again, it's just like the scope of it, and like it really is one of the first brick films where it's actually like a feature length like film, because like most brick films are pretty short, and between like 4 to 10 minutes, sometimes like 15 or 20. But yeah, this is it was like one of the really first like actually feature length brick films. And it's a fun story, and it really says a lot.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I couldn't help but feel like before watching it was that this is a 2004 brick film, and it's 75 minutes long. Is this going to be a bit of a daunting task?
I know what you mean.
But it doesn't actually feel that long. It seems to flow naturally. It doesn't feel like it's deliberately sort of trying to drag on. The pacing is actually surprisingly really good.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's probably worth mentioning if people want to watch it now for the first time. I feel like the start of it is the worst part.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When what's his name? Darth Digital
Geekus.
Yeah, when he arrives, and he's kind of hard to understand, and also like just the green screen effect isn't the best.
Yeah, that's not the best. Yeah, just generally I feel like at the start it seems a bit rocky, but then it really gets going.
Yeah, if you can get past that, if you can just look past the effects and the way that it's kind of hard to understand what he says, it gets really good and really funny. I think it's like right after where Palpatine is meeting with Queen Amidala. That's like so funny.
There was always seemed to be a bit of an allure around Leftfield films. It felt like the quality of their gags was just on a higher level than what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons it holds up so well. Is like it has some really good writing. It definitely has a lot of references, and it draws off a lot of movies, like The Princess Bride, for example. But it works in its favor. It's because it's Star Wars. It's like sort of fun to see that play into the Lego Star Wars world.
And of course, the fact that it's like, essentially made to make fun of the prequels. And one of my favorite things about it is how it keeps cutting back to the Jedi Council, and they just keep talking about the disturbance, but they don't do anything. And it just gets more and more ridiculous how much time they're wasting.
Yeah, I just love that whole, like, every time they go back to council and they just sit there, they just do nothing.
Yeah, I always loved that one guy who's just totally out of place on the council, the one with the cap and the jacket. That's always just really funny. Just seeing a regular Lego guy in the council, in the Jedi Council, when everyone else is in Jedi robes, is really funny. And I feel like I don't think I really understood when the first time I saw it. I didn't understand until like a few years later that Darth Digital Geekin was supposed to be George Lucas, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't think of that actually.
But yeah, that's the thing. Even though it's kind of making fun, it's not particularly mean-spirited either.
Yeah, it's just that's what I like about it. It's like it pokes fun, but it's not like oh, these movies are trash. It's like
one of my favorite parts was when Obi-Wan just decides to just abandon Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
he's just like, oh, he's on his way. He's coming now. Oh, actually, no, forget it. He can take care of himself now. And he just leaves him.
Yeah, I feel like he served his purpose in the script, and then it was time to move on.
But yeah, I am quite happy that people actually still recognize the Great Disturbance, even though it can be a bit hard to find. It seems to have awareness among like newer people as an important piece of brick filming history.
Well, that's good.
Well, particularly I think like I've heard it being mentioned within like the Brickfilm Day community because they have an annual like May the 4th celebration, and I've seen the Great Disturbance being mentioned quite a lot, as a notable like Star Wars brick film, as well as just a brick film, a notable brick film.
Since we can't get the original Star Wars trilogy to be preserved, maybe we can submit this to the Film Academy, and they'll preserve the Great Disturbance.
I think that's my job.
The Criterion Collection one day it will also include Great Disturbance.
I think it'll work. Or we can send it to George Lucas, and he could edit it however he wants. He could have the McClunky edit, and then he can submit it. When I really was like thinking about it the other day, seeing that film really made me realize like what you could do with Legos and sort of like how you could tell a grander story, with it. And I think it's kind of like it's stuck with me all these years, and it's one of the things that made me not afraid to try to make my own Lego movie, because I'm like, oh, it's been done before. It's like, Minilife isn't going to be the first Lego movie. We have the Great Disturbance, and that's like that's a feature-length film. And and like, because I know that some part of me when I saw it like as a teenager, I was always like, one day I want to make something like that. Like I want to make a big Lego story. And so yeah, and because I hadn't really thought about it until you asked me to do the podcast, and I chose it. But yeah, the Great Disturbance has still definitely got it's had an influence on me without even realizing it, even all these years later. So yeah, I just wanted to say that before we move on.
But actually, it was the choice of the Great Disturbance that inspired what I want to pick for the showcase this time, because like sort of on the other side, the Great Disturbance is still recognised for its place in Brickfilm history, but I feel like Cleaning Time, the Janitorial, Contingency is not particularly well known these days. And so this is a Brickfilm from 2005. It was the first community project Brickfilm. And what got me thinking about this was, of course, that recently Zach Macias has made the Quarantine Days community project, which is easily the largest community project ever, with the largest number of participants and amount of material. But I feel like Cleaning Time is unsurpassed in what it achieved. I think there's never been a community project film since that is as much of a singular film as Cleaning Time.
I mean, I've been aware of the film for years, actually. I remember the first time I watched it was when I was starting, when I was new to Community. I remember never being aware that it was actually a community project because it just seemed so much like a singular film. And, comparing it to later collaborations that are comparable to this, I don't feel like there is like a definitively unique thing that you can identify like each brick filmer. It seems very much that they were trying to make one film, I guess.
Yeah, so I didn't even know about this brick film until you sent it to me, and it was interesting because like it says in the beginning, like a brick film community project, and after having watched it, it's not really clear that like it was shot by different people, because it does flow really good and it feels all like it's shot by the same person. I think there was maybe one sequence, one like little shot where it felt like it was done on a different camera.
One thing that gave it away for me was there's a bit right near the end where they travel to prehistoric times, the dinosaur, and it seems to me as though they didn't actually have all the pieces, so they just showed the back of the time machine rather than the front. I don't know if that was
sense.
like
I was wondering why they did that.
I think that was the case, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Probably helped back then that most people used the same camera.
Yeah, that's probably partly what it is. Like, these days you're kind of aware of that. You go from like C920 DSLR, like there's a definite look difference. Whereas, you see like something like Quarantine Days, it's very definitely different people each film. Whereas this, it kind of like, yeah, the camera is pretty much, I think it's probably the same every time. It's probably partly why.
It is funny how so many brick films back then, they do have this kind of consistent look. Like there's a specific look from that era, and it's just all as a result of the cameras that were available. But yeah, it's funny because there's like sort of a specific look from brick films at that time.
Mm-hmm. But also in the way that the figures move and the sets are designed.
Yeah,
Cleaning Time is very much in all of the old stylings.
Yeah.
Also, did anyone notice the Nesquik minifigure?
Oh yeah, without the helmet.
Oh, it's like the white one, with the face. Yeah, yeah.
That's a hugely rare like minifigure that's really sought after now. It's kind of funny seeing it in this because I imagine that a lot of people in the old days would have had that minifigure.
Yeah, that stuck out to me just because I have that one. Because I bought that one in Bricklink a few years back, and it's my favorite crowd minifig to put in. I like to try to put it as many crowd pieces as possible. They first showed up in season 4 in the World Tournament, and I don't know. It's funny to throw the bunny in there.
Yeah, I was considering buying the Nesquik figure to demonstrate in the LEGO Studios history video, but then I thought, no. I looked at the price and I thought, I'll just take somebody else's YouTube video.
How much do they actually sell for now, actually?
Maybe like $40 to $50.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
Yeah. It was definitely way cheaper when I bought it, so I got it at a good time, I guess.
Mind you, maybe Bricklink, you can be just lucky with finding a right one, I suppose.
But yeah, I'd like if Cleaning Time had more general awareness, and people knew that this kind of project it is possible to make it, even if it's incredibly difficult. It'd be nice to see eventually, and I know that it's always one of these ideas that's considered to be generally impossible, but it'd be nice to see another community project Brickfilm like this, where people collaborate on all factors of the filmmaking to make it one cohesive film.
It had some pretty good voice acting too, because that's one of the things that, like, in a Brickfilm, even if the video quality is a little low, if the acting is good, I can stick with it. There's been times where, like, I jump into a Brickfilm that looks really pretty, but then the voice acting is just kind of not there. It's kind of all mumbling and stuff, and it's hard to stick with it. And sometimes I dip out because acting is very important, because obviously that's what you're listening to the whole time. But yeah, I was really impressed that this one has some pretty good, consistent voice acting throughout.
Yeah, I do. That's something that stuck out to me as well. I do really like the voice acting. The characters are quite fun.
Yeah, and
well.
like I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I enjoyed seeing the little Battle of New Orleans clip. So it was. I don't know who made that one, but was the person? Do you know the person who made that? Were they involved in this?
Yeah, the Battle of New Orleans is made by Revman, who owned Brickfilms.com at the time, and he was involved in the creation of Cleaning Time.
Cool. Wow.
I really like that museum sequence with that Battle of New Orleans, but also the bits before that as well. I just love the whole expansive kind of like exhibitions, like the whole like caveman and the that kind of thing. It's just it looks really cool.
Yeah, like building it inside the box.
Yeah.
I think there was a Brickfilm that did that for a TV screen that I saw once, where like it showed a close up of the TV, and like the scale was such that inside the screen was a set, like an actual set with figures animated inside.
And what I like about it as well is that they use different lighting for those for inside, so it really does have a cool effect.
It's a very impressive Brickfilm for the time.
I got to say though, Revman is the only name that I'm actually familiar with, at least from like the actual names of the people.
That's kind of a funny thing about it, is that it seems like the sort of turnover of community names was a lot faster back then. So like the film entered production in 2003, and because as all community projects do, it was delayed a bunch of times and took a long time to complete. So by the time it came out in 2005, most of the names, they weren't like as heavily involved with the community anymore. It much more represents the people who were around in 2003 than the people who were around in 2005.
I'm still really surprised that I never saw it before. When did Brickfilms.com go down? When did it end?
2008.
Because I do remember that. I remember when it ended. That was also during sort of the rise of YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
but I guess I'm kind of not surprised that you wouldn't have seen this one before, because really, it's just kind of known to long-time community members. They'd be the ones who would mention it occasionally. Other than that, it never had much popularity on YouTube or anything. In fact, I don't know if it was even uploaded until I think 2011 is when the Mott Films uploaded it. But
I like I said, I used to go on Brickfilms.com pretty consistently.
Oh yeah.
To check things out, but I still never saw it. But yeah, I don't know. Again, that's also a website that was very primitive for the time, so it's easy to miss things on there. Yeah.
I was say, I was just looking at the names then, and I didn't realise, that Tom Dean did Anne Frank and Bricks.
Classic.
Watching it's funny that like you picked that one, and I watched it for the first time yesterday, because the new trailer for the third Bill and Ted movie just came out, and so like I was already thinking about like time traveling duos and stuff, and then watching that, it got me thinking about Minilife, and it made me laugh because I realized that our characters had a time machine. We never did the thing that you're supposed to do when your characters have a time machine, which is have them go back in time in different eras. And I don't know. I think it's really funny that, well, like when I was thinking about it yesterday, it was really funny that I realized we had a time machine, and we went all the way through to where that time machine was destroyed, and not once did our characters have like a travel through time adventure. But yeah, I guess we didn't fall into a cliche. I'm just surprised.
It's more original that way.
Yeah. So yeah, is there anything else to say on that particular brick film? Is there any like more cool history on it?
Well, I mean, there is some history detailed on the wiki page. Mostly, just kind of going over how it took a long time to make and with some difficulties along the way. One part of the history of Cleaning Time is that it was inspired by a previous project in 2001 called the Director's Project, which it's like just sort of on the line where it's like almost a community project, but I kind of consider it to be more of a like co-production between 4 people rather than a community project. So the idea of making community project brick films was essentially like, hey, what if we took the Director's Project idea and actually gave it some more structure and made a better film with it? So it's kind of interesting that since then nobody's really taken it further. Nobody's made an even bigger film with the community project.
Listen, the Director's Project actually is a missing brick film.
Yeah, that's very annoying to me.
It's called, what is it? The Director's Project?
Yeah. Well, the films that came out of the Director's Project, they did actually have individual names, but I don't know what they are because the films are missing.
Is some of the project actually like? So some of it is actually exists.
Yes,
like...
they were done in essentially the same manner as the Brickfilm Day finished the story films, where one person would make some footage and then send it to the next person, who would watch it and then continue it on. So there was no story decided beforehand.
You know, when I think of like the brick filming community and like the early brick filming community, it makes me think of like early like movies, like the first movies ever made, like in black and white with like no sound, where it was just like someone playing a piano in a theater, and like how many of those movies are now lost, and like there's so many like classics, and like, you know, classic films that people will never get to see because they were like either destroyed or sold to burn down the film and turn it into something else. And it kind of reminds me, or it makes me think of early brick films, because like there were so many good ones on brickfilms.com that, you know, that didn't all make it to YouTube.
Yeah,
some of them are just lost forever. There's still like there's still one that like I think about every now and then that I don't even know I don't remember what it was called, and I've never seen it on YouTube, but like I think about it every now and then.
Do you remember what happens in it? Because I maintain archives of the old brickfilms.com directories, and I've tracked down a bunch of missing films.
So okay, it's been a very long time, but I remember it has something to do with like this couple. I think maybe the guy or the girl was cheating on the other one, and like they died, and then like they came back as a ghost and like were haunting them. It was kind of like a dramatic brick film.
Not ringing any bells off the bat.
Man, I wish I could remember it, because that's one of the ones that like when the first time I saw
it wouldn't be Faithless, would it?
I don't know.
Oh, I mean that does, yeah. I mean, okay, so Faithless, he dies and he goes back in time. He re-experiences like the events leading up to his death, but backwards.
As a ghost, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's it. Now that you've said that, yeah, I'm starting to remember more. Yeah, I think that might be it. Is it on YouTube or where is it?
Well,
it's on Brickfilms Archive.
I have it on Google Drive.
Can you send it to me so I can see it for the first time in like I don't know how many years, over a decade?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Do you know, it literally was the first, my first pick on the showcase on this podcast. Yeah, it's, I think it is like possibly my favourite brick film.
Yeah, because again, it's been forever since I've seen it, but I just remember it being really good, and it really made an impression on me. And oh man, that was so crazy. Me just describing what I remember, and then you guys saying a bit more, and suddenly my memory's coming back.
Well, yeah, that was certainly one of the classics of the era, and yeah, largely forgotten over time, given that it was hard to acquire.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad through this podcast, it has resurfaced in the ether, and I'm gonna be able to see it again.
Yeah, I'll send it to you as soon as we're done with this.
Cool.
But yeah, Faithless, I mean, there's a lot of it that's still very impressive even now.
Who made that one? Have they made any other notable brick films?
It was made by Grayscale, who I think only had like 3 or 4 brick films to his name, and the other ones are just small shorts. Really, he's known for Faithless, and that's about it. But that was enough to secure his legacy.
There is actually a reference to Cognizance in the film as well.
Oh, is there? I must have forgotten. Yeah, I'm very excited to rewatch it now. Boy, it's brick filming history is really something unique.
Yeah, I've also likened the early Lego Studios and like 01, 02 Brickfilms.com era to the silent era of film history.
Yeah, it's definitely its own unique thing, and yeah, I'm glad you put the work in to try to preserve as many as you can. So good on you for that.
Thank you.
He's definitely the #1 brick filming historian.
So I forget how old are the two of you?
Well, I'm 19. Don't know, Penta, you 21?
24.
24. Right.
Oh wow, I didn't. I thought Penta was like around the same age as me. I didn't realize I was older than both of you.
To be honest, I thought I was around the same age as you as well.
Yeah, how old are you actually?
I'm 27.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but I still get mistaken for 18 by a lot of people.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I get mistaken for 15, so.
It's not quite a big gap, as big as a gap as I get, but wow, yeah, that's cool though. That's how did you guys? I don't know if you've said this on the podcast before, but how did you guys come together and start this podcast?
Well, basically, it was around the time that Brick Film Day did the 45th anniversary of the oldest known brick film, Journey to the Moon, and there was the Brick Film Day, basically the 24 hours, different brick films released throughout the day.
Wait, did you say the oldest known brick film is called Journey to the Moon?
Or was it Trip to the Moon? I mixed them up because there's the George Millet's film as well, which is
yeah,
it's Journey to the Moon, yeah.
Journey to the Moon, yeah.
That's so you're saying that the earliest known brick film is about going to the moon, just like or one of the most best known early films is Going to the Moon?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I didn't even know that. I don't think I've seen that one. You'll have to send that to me too.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly, it's one of the best films of its time, brick films of its time as well, which is quite surprising. But yeah,
I always thought it was Magic Portal.
Well, that's what a lot of people thought, and partly I wanted to. I think we were both making films which were kind of like debunking that.
That's true, actually. Come to think of it, for the Brick Film Day event the same year, I made the first brick filming history video that I made, and of course it goes over Journey to the Moon being the earliest known brick film and everything else that happened before the Magic Portal, in addition to covering the Magic Portal.
Yeah, not to throw shade, the Magic Portal is a great film though.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah. I mean, what I did is I did a timeline series, so basically like a compilation, like going through the years, and I did 2 parts because it ended up being about half an hour long. But it was started in 1973, and then continued all the way to the late 2000s, and then I did a follow-up that was from then to present day.
And these videos were showing clips of the notable brick films throughout the years.
Yeah, and that kind of made me kind of think, because a lot of people commented and said, that they really... It introduced them to brick films they had never heard of, and the same with Penta as well, his history of brick films.
And also, I made suggestions for what to include in those videos.
Yeah. So it was like a collaborative thing between both of us. I like the idea of talking about brick films more, and generally like the lesser known brick films, that kind of stuff. And I just thought it would be a great idea just to, well, I think it was Penta's idea mainly to actually make it sort of guest orientated, so that we get different voices to talk about their experiences, and we'll talk about brick films that inspired them as well. So overall, we both kind of ended up making it what it is, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing was, I was the first guest on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I filled in as co-host for the next like 2, and then just became permanent co-host. So I didn't quite start off as the co-host, but I think I've been on every one.
There's literally only one episode that you're not in, and that's the second ever episode with Trigger Brick.
Oh.
Yeah. It's always quite funny when I have to look back to it. It's like, wait, this is the episode without Penta. Yeah, it's quite weird.
Well, it's a very good podcast. I think I really enjoyed when I found it and started listening to it.
Thank you.
It's cool to listen to brick filmers that I do know, and then discover a few that I wasn't so familiar with.
I have to be honest, I never expected it to get to the scope that it did. I had absolutely no idea that I'd end up interviewing like Forest Fire and Edbound and that kind of thing. It's like I never imagined it would get to this point.
And what I always like to try to do is try to find information that like other brick filmers can learn from in discussing films and filmmaking techniques. I feel like that's a great benefit of having podcasts.
Yeah, there's definitely it's really interesting. There's just so many approaches you can take to a brick film. Like there's all sorts of different styles you can do, and yeah, I think that's one of the cooler things. Just like, I don't know, looking at all the guests you've had on the podcast so far, everyone kind of has their own unique, different style. Yeah, and there's always, just like how there's so many different ways to build the Lego set, there's always so many different more ways that you can explore how to shoot a Lego film.
That's true.
That's what I've been trying to experiment with a lot the last few years. Definitely, I feel like I only touched up on it in like my earlier stuff, but now I've really gotten into trying to experiment and make things more dynamic and stylized.
It's definitely shown through. The stylization is evident.
One of the things that I always find funny about a lot of the brick filmers that I've been following for a long time, like I've actually been watching Minilife TV for about 5 years now. So I've enjoyed them for really enjoyed watching them for a while. And one of the things I found when I was watching them, I think I started watching when season 5, like the first episode of season 5, and I was really impressed by like the quality of it. I found it really inspiring, and I wanted to kind of, it's one of those sort of films I wanted to kind of reach that level at some point. And to see you grow even beyond that so much is really quite inspiring. And to already be inspired by someone years before, but then see them continue to grow and hone their skills is it's really great to see, actually, I think.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's really cool. You never really know who's watching, and yeah, that's a really nice thing to hear. It's funny because like I said, we started the show and we were just kind of making it up as we went along, and then like obviously from a story standpoint, I had to figure all that out. But then also I had to stop and kind of really think like what kind of style I want to go with, and so there's lots of things to experiment with. And season 4 was definitely like a big step in experimentation, because that was like me first sort of dipping my toes in a more anime kind of style. And then that was like the first time I really like put the arms out of the socket. I remember I got inspired to do that from the Nightly News at 9. And then, like moving forward from that, I was like, oh, well, I'm doing mouths now, but I feel like it could be better. So I tried to perfect it more in season 5, and I feel like I didn't really get it until Minilife Chronicles. But and then finally, like the thing that really like woke me up recently, and like inspired me so much to like really sort of hone my style and make me realize that you could do anything, is the movie Into the Spider-Verse. Because once I saw that, and just how different it is from all the other like like 3D cartoon movies you see, like Pixar stuff, it just like it stands out so much, and it, like they really made it have its own like great look, and the way it's animated, it's not as smooth as Pixar either. Like it looks kind of choppy at some parts, but I actually like really love that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just kind of like when I saw it, it shook me. Like it woke me up to remember that like, oh, you can do whatever you want to do. There's no rules, even if it feels like it.
Yeah,
and,
very eye-opening.
Yeah, and kind of like what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, where like I felt like Brickfilms had to be written a certain way and look a certain way. I really just realized like, I don't know, you can just do whatever you want, and even if it feels like there is a preset way to do something, that's just a feeling. It's not actually that. You can do whatever you want, and so yeah, that's like my biggest inspiration. That, and I would say Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Nice.
I remember seeing that in high school, and if you guys remember, like the way it starts with when Knives shows up to the band rehearsal, and then the credits play, and then you see her, and she's just like staring in amazement, and like, wow, like that was me watching the movie. I was just like, wow, this is like nothing I've ever seen before, and yeah, so I think it's always important to remember that you can do anything you want, and there's no preset way to do something. I would say learn all the rules and then choose which ones to follow and which ones to break.
I think that's a good advice, and probably the perfect note to end this on.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything better than that.
Yeah, it's a perfect ending. Yeah, well, just thank you so much for your time, and just be on the show. Yeah, you've been a great guest.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for having me on. This was really fun, and I'm still surprised, or I can't believe that you guys knew the Brickfilm I was trying to remember, and now you're going to send it to me. So yeah, thank you very much for having me, guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, bye guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.